Chapter 11 Casting a Net in the Sea of Suffering, Is This Still a Human Being? You are listening at novelfull.audio. That is, the Black Sea where she is now is not a so-called illusion at all, it is in the real space, because it is well known that illusions have limitations. Although the stronger the arrayer is, the lower the limitations will be, but illusions are still illusions and cannot be compared with the real world, and everything she encountered and saw before her eyes did not seem to be arranged by an illusion at all. Thinking of this, Su Wenjiu breathed quickly. Despair gradually appeared on her face. If this is true, then her chance of getting out is slim. But she really couldn't figure out how such an existence could exist in this small mountain. Looking up, it was snowing heavily in the sky. It made Su Wenjiu's heart even colder. No, I can't die here, I have to get out. Su Wenjiu gritted his teeth and flew towards the only reference point, the White Lotus, because in such an environment, if there is no reference point, even a high-level practitioner will lose his direction. It's snowing again. In the courtyard hall, Zhong Qing, who was lying on a recliner reading a book, put down the book in his hand and slowly looked up at the snowflakes fluttering outside the door. Zhong Qing actually likes snowy days very much. Since ancient times, there has been a saying that auspicious snow indicates a good harvest. Once upon a time, he had a dream of being a knight in the snow. I remember that was my grandmother's house in the countryside in my previous life. It was also the season when thousands of pear trees were in bloom. The young boy took the white plastic paper in the bag of sliding urea, cut it into a rectangle and draped it behind him. He also cut a piece of bamboo from the back mountain, tied it with a red rope, and tied it around his waist. The wind and snow were continuous, and the night went out, leaving no trace of the 300-meter dogtail grass. Even though he traveled through time, he had dreamed of being a fairy hero for a long time. It was just that the dog system that never gave him cultivation had worn away his passion. Even if this useless bondage system is activated now, it is still difficult for him to pick up the kind of hot-blooded passion of his middle school years. After all, he doesn't need to practice by himself, and he can increase his cultivation even when lying down, so if that's the case, why should he work hard? So it doesn't matter if you take it slow. Although he is not invincible now, he will be invincible sooner or later with the increase of the useless bond. Of course, the second useless apprentice still needs to be found. After all, with the second useless apprentice, the apprentice's cultivation feedback will reach 10,000 times, and it is the superposition of two apprentices. However, the dog system did not give any prompts now, so Zhong Qing could only let it go for the time being, but he was bored after doing nothing. He got up and picked up the homemade bamboo fishing rod in the corner, put on a white hat and walked out of the door, heading towards the small pond in the back mountain. This pond was also obtained by signing in. Zhong Qing knew that there were no ordinary things given by the system signing in. Although he had not figured out the specific effect of this pond so far, he only knew that the system named this pond the Sea of Bitterness, but it did not affect his fishing here. For so many years alone in the mountains, he had no cultivation and could not fast before. So this pond has always been one of his food sources. However, as soon as he walked to the edge of the pond, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Because he saw a beautiful woman running up and down in the pond. Sometimes she showed despair, sometimes she collapsed in pain, and sometimes she cheered herself up and then started running up and down again. This scene made Zhong Qing, who was standing on the shore, look really funny. But Zhong Qing was no longer surprised. He got the Bitter Sea by signing in 4 years ago, and he had placed it here. In these 4 years, creatures who accidentally broke into the Bitter Sea were not once or twice. There were ordinary birds and beasts, as well as spiritual beasts and birds with considerable cultivation, after they accidentally entered the Bitter Sea, except for some who drowned in it. Without exception, they ran up and down in the Bitter Sea and could not get out for a long time. In fact, when he discovered this strange situation, Zhong Qing was also puzzled for a long time. He was so curious that he couldn't stand the doubts in his heart and walked down many times, but this strange phenomenon did not happen to him. The water in the Bitter Sea was only chest deep. One could swim from one end to the other by diving in and at least kicking one's feet. Of course, Zhong Qing also thought that he was the master of this Bitter Sea after all, so it was understandable that the strange phenomenon did not work on him. Of course, a person fell in this time, and it was a woman, which was indeed the first time he encountered it, but he still had experience. And he had prepared a scoop net on the shore a long time ago. The significance of the scoop net was that some Dead animals could be caught in time to reduce pollution, and if he encountered spiritual animals and birds that looked delicious, it could also improve his diet. Some of them were neither dead nor appetizing, and they would be released after being caught. After all, watching them running up and down when fishing was annoying, so when facing this woman, he was no exception and aimed at the scoop net and caught her. At this moment in the bitter sea, Su Wenjiu was really going to collapse. Her cultivation, which she was proud of, was so powerless when she was trapped in the bitter sea. No matter how hard she tried to fly or how hard she bombarded the sea of suffering, it was still useless. Just when she was on the verge of collapse, she suddenly found a huge net appeared in the sky above her head. Su Wenjiu's heart was filled with turbulent waves. In this boundless black sea, a net actually appeared in the sky. She subconsciously wanted to avoid the net, but she found that the net covered the entire world she could see, and there was almost no room for resistance. He was directly caught in it. The next moment, she felt a huge force coming from the net, pulling her in one direction. With this pull, she felt that her body had passed through the void and crossed the galaxy so far. The whole person became dizzy and her mind became blank. However, while her mind was blank, a gentle voice came from the side. "Girl." Su Wenjiu was startled and opened his eyes, and found that a young man in white wearing a bamboo hat appeared next to him. The young man looked young, gentle and elegant on the surface, holding a bamboo fishing rod, with scattered snow on his shoulders, looking at him. In this case, the moment he saw this young man, Su Wenjiu was frightened and subconsciously stepped back. After taking 2 steps back, she just retreated to the shore of the bitter sea. She looked back at the black water pond. That was 2 meters long and wide, and then she realized that she had walked out of the boundless black sea space. I actually came out. Su Wenjiu was surprised and happy, and tears almost burst out of her eyes. In excitement, she also looked back at the young man in front of her. Chapter 12 The Lord of the Sea of Bitterness. It turns out to be him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At a glance, apart from his extraordinary temperament, the young man did not see anything special. It's even more difficult to see through the slightest fluctuation in his cultivation, but she would not be so stupid as to regard the young man in front of her as an ordinary person. The fact that he could easily rescue her from the Black Sea was enough to show how extraordinary he was. There is no slight fluctuation in cultivation level on his body. There is only one explanation, and that is that his cultivation is so strong that he can control it freely. Dare I ask if it was Senior who saved me? Su Wenjiu asked cautiously and respectfully. Zhong Qing did not deny it and nodded. If she doesn't fish for people, this woman probably won't be able to get out of the pond. Little girl Su Wenjiu, thank you Senior for saving your life. Su Wenjiu bowed quickly and expressed gratitude. After expressing her gratitude, she did not forget to ask her doubts. Senior, I dare to ask, where is this pond? Su Wenjiu looked at the small pond behind him with lingering fear and couldn't help but ask. Sea of Bitterness. Zhong Qing responded calmly. Sea of Bitterness? Hearing this, a thunder exploded in Su Wenjiu's mind. She had heard from the elders of the sect that there was a heaven-defying magic weapon in Buddhism, the ancient Holy Land, called the Sea of Bitterness. According to legend, he was trapped in the Sea of Suffering and could never come out. There is no end to the Sea of Suffering, that's it. Senior, is this Sea of Suffering the same as that of ancient Buddhism? Su Wenjiu asked with rapid breathing. Zhong Qing sat on a small bench and threw the baited hook into the pond. While listening to Su Wenjiu's questions, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. You ask me, who should I ask? But after all, it was obtained by signing into the system. The system cannot produce extraordinary products. It is really possible that this Sea of Suffering is the Sea of Suffering that Su Wenjiu asked about. If you say yes, then maybe it is. Zhong Qing responded lightly. Hearing what Zhong Qing said, Su Wenjiu took a breath. Thinking back on it, I was already sweating profusely. She actually walked through the Sea of Suffering. Yeah, a fish is hooked. At this time, the float in the pond moved, and Zhong Qing's eyes couldn't help but light up. Su Wenjiu followed the voice and asked, and was suddenly shocked, this man is actually fishing in the Sea of Suffering? Before he could recover, he saw Zhong Qing lifting up a hook, and a 2-inch long, fiery red fish with an unknown name was lifted up. When Su Wenjiu saw this fish, he took a few steps back in fright, and his entire face turned extremely pale, because the moment she saw this fish, she instantly remembered the giant creature she had seen when she was in the Sea of Suffering. Looking down, it looks like a dragon or a dragon, and its whole body is fiery red, especially its arched back. Although it varied in size, Su Wenjiu would never forget the shape and scales. When she was shocked, the fish also looked at her. Immediately afterwards, a message fell into her ears: "Little guy, we are really destined. I didn't expect you to escape from the Sea of Suffering." When this message fell in her mind, it was like a thunderclap. The fish caught in front of her was actually the giant fish she encountered in the Sea of Suffering. Her expression suddenly became panicked, and the look in Zhong Qing's eyes became unfathomable. Using a bamboo pole to fish out an existence comparable to a mythical beast in the Sea of Suffering. What kind of magical method is this? Little guy, you don't have to be surprised. He is the master of the Sea of Suffering. He is helping me escape from the Sea of Suffering. You and I were both saved by him, and he has the grace to recreate us. As a human being, you may still have the opportunity to serve your benefactor. And my role is just to add another dish of steaming or frying to my benefactor's table. Cherish it. I will be reincarnated first. As soon as the sound transmission fell, the fish was already put into the fish guard by Zhong Qing, but Su Wenjiu couldn't calm down for a long time. The master of the Sea of Suffering, what a concept. She couldn't imagine it anymore. Looking at Zhong Qing in front of him, he has changed from being respectful and grateful at the beginning to being afraid and surrendering. It's like a self-aware ant looking up at an adult elephant. By the way, I haven't asked you yet, why did you come to my shogunate peak? At this time, after Zhong Qing laid the bait again, he turned his head and looked at Su Wenjiu and asked this question, but Su Wenjiu was dumbfounded. If her guess was correct, the Zhong Qing in front of her might be Lin Feng's master. The purpose of what he did was to negotiate with Lin Feng's master and let Lin Feng become his apprentice. She even thought that if Lin Feng's master didn't agree, she was going to use force. But how dare she say this now? Where do you have the face to say it? So now that she thought about it, falling into misery didn't seem like such a bad thing. If she hadn't had the accident of falling into a sea of misery, she might have just rushed to Zhong Qing's face and asked for her disciple. Who knows if what will greet her then will be reduced to ashes. Although she suffered a big loss in the Sea of Suffering, at least she saved her life. Seeing that Su Wenjiu was silent for a long time, Zhong Qing couldn't help but turn his head and look at her. Facing Zhong Qing's gaze, Su Wenjiu was nervous. She hadn't thought about her words yet, so she could only bite the bullet and said with an embarrassed look, "Senior, I said I passed by, do you believe it?" "What do you think?" Zhong Qing tilted his head to look at her. I don't believe it either." Su Wenjiu wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Facing Zhong Qing's inquiring eyes, he was so anxious that he almost cried. However, at this moment, a young figure flew over from the ice and snow and landed beside the two. Disciple greets master. The person who came was Lin Feng. "Disciple, why did you suddenly think of looking for me? Is there anything?" Zhong Qing smiled. "Master, this is the case. I may reach Xianxia realm in a month or so." Zhong Qing said respectfully, "After arriving in Xianxia realm, I have some private matters to deal with, so I applied to master in advance. At that time, I may go down the mountain. I hope master will help me. Since you want to go down the mountain for something, there is naturally no problem." Zhong Qing smiled and touched Lin Feng's head, saying gently. However, seeing Lin Feng, Su Wenjiu was numb. "What you fear is what will come." He dodged desperately, fearing that Zhong Qing would see him, but how could Lin Feng not see such a big person? At the first glance, he recognized Su Wenjiu. "It's you?" Lin Feng looked at Su Wenjiu in surprise. Su Wenjiu's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. "Oh, you know her?" On the side, Zhong Qing looked at Lin Feng and couldn't help asking. "Master, in order to consolidate my cultivation and improve my practical experience, I practiced in the mountains and forests 100 miles away, and I met her during the practice." Lin Feng answered respectfully and truthfully. "She said that she saw that I practiced very quickly, so she asked me to leave the master, worship her as my master, and become her apprentice." Chapter 13, Phoenix Bloodline. Sorry, it still doesn't meet the requirements to become my discus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nonsense. But before Lin Feng could finish his words, Su Wenjiu shouted and interrupted Lin Feng abruptly. I clearly said that you, the young man, have made rapid progress in cultivation. No matter where your master is, I also want to be his disciple, not your master. In a critical moment, Su Wenjiu said with a red face. Lin Feng couldn't understand what Su Wenjiu said. The young boy scratched the back of his head and blinked his eyes. Did you really say that? But I remember you didn't say that. Lin Feng said with a puzzled look. You also said that you came from the Holy Land of the East region, and that it would be better for me to join the Holy Land than to join the Shogun Peak. You heard it wrong. Su Wenjiu hurriedly explained, although I said that I came from the Holy Land, I said that no disciple in my Holy Land had made such rapid progress as you, so I couldn't help but want to join the Shogun Peak. Then what about you saying that you would give me an 8th grade sword? Lin Feng asked again. That's right, that's right. I want you to introduce me to someone, and the 8th grade sword is my reward. In order not to offend Zhong Qing in front of him, Su Wenjiu lied to the extreme at this moment. It can be said that he was full of desire to survive. As he said this, he was afraid that Zhong Qing would not believe him, so he hurriedly bowed to Zhong Qing respectfully and sincerely and said, Senior, it's true. I saw that this little brother's cultivation progressed rapidly, and I knew that he must have an extraordinary master. So in a moment of excitement, I followed this little brother to the shogunate peak, wanting to become your disciple, but I didn't expect to fall into the sea of suffering before I met you. But no matter what, I rashly entered the peak without your consent, and I hope you will forgive me. As he said this, Su Wenjiu knelt on his knees and knelt on the ground sincerely. Bah, I have never seen such a shameless person. And listening to Su Wenjiu's words, the old sword in the wild ring couldn't help but complain. Humph, I said she didn't say that at all. You heard it, Master Jian, too. How could she be so shameless? Lin Feng was also furious. Just when he was about to expose the true face of this shameless woman to Zhong Qing, he was interrupted by Zhong Qing. What is the truth? He is not a fool. Naturally, he can see it. There is no need to say more, but he was not very angry. Since the 100-fold increase was turned on, Lin Feng's terrifying speed of cultivation would make anyone jealous and want to accept him as a disciple. It is also human nature, and following to the Shogun Peak and falling into the sea of suffering, this woman must have suffered a lot. Besides, although this woman lied with her eyes open, her attitude was still sincere, so he was too lazy to pursue anything. Girl, go away. Don't come to the Shogun Peak again. Zhong Qing waved his hand and said. Su Wenjiu's face was hot. Naturally, she could tell from Zhong Qing's attitude that he knew she was lying. She blushed and quickly apologized respectfully. Sorry, Senior, I lied just now. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'm blind and ignorant, and I offended you. With your disciple's talent for rapid cultivation, I'm not qualified to accept him as my disciple. But Senior, what I said later is really from the bottom of my heart that I want to worship you as my master. I hope you can help me. Su Wenjiu said respectfully. Now that she saw Zhong Qing, she really had the idea of worshipping him as his master, because Zhong Qing was the first person she had ever seen in her life who made her feel unfathomable, not to mention that she had also seen the sea of suffering and the terrifying means of fishing out the behemoth from the sea of suffering. So it was definitely right to worship Zhong Qing as her master. Su Wenjiu's words surprised Zhong Qing a little, although he couldn't say that he had a good impression of this woman's final honesty, at least he didn't have a bad impression of her. But becoming a disciple, Zhong Qing couldn't help but look at Su Wenjiu, and after observing her for a while, he finally shook his head. Girl, you don't meet my conditions for accepting a disciple, so you should leave. Just now, Zhong Qing used the sky eye to observe her, and her talent and qualifications were indeed very, very good, but he couldn't activate the bond. For him, it was useless, and he couldn't teach, so for both parties, this discipleship was completely unnecessary. Don't meet the conditions. Su Wenjiu heard this. It was a blow, you know. With her talent and strength, she broke the record of Xianxia Valley in history. In order to accept her as a disciple, the old predecessors of the sect even fought and took out all kinds of things from the bottom of the box, but in the end no one won, and no one was convinced. In the end, it was discussed that everyone taught together, which calmed the storm. That's why, as the saint of Xianxia Valley, she didn't have a real master in the strict sense, and she did not disappoint everyone. Although she was only in her 20s, her cultivation had already reached the moon profound realm. It was no exaggeration to say that she was the future of the Xianxia Valley Holy Land, but today, in front of Zhong Qing, she did not even have the qualifications to become a disciple, but the more this happened, she did not want to give up. Because she understood that this time entering the Shogun Peak and meeting Zhong Qing might be a disaster for her, but it could also be an opportunity. She was ready to tell the biggest secret about her. This secret was known to no one except a few people in Xianxia Valley, because before her strength grew up, once it was leaked, Xianxia Valley and herself might face a catastrophe. She believed that after she told this secret, Zhong Qing would change his mind and accept her as a disciple. Senior, in fact, in addition to my own talent, I actually have a secret hidden in me that is unknown to others. Su Wenjiu took a deep breath. He was ready to muster up the courage to tell this secret, but before he could say it, Zhong Qing took the lead in saying it. I know that there is still a trace of the blood of the ancient phoenix in my body. Zhong Qing said lightly. When he looked at her with the heavenly eye just now, he had already seen it. Under the heavenly eye, no matter what strength, talent, or hidden physique, nothing could escape. Su Wenjiu widened his eyes, and his red lips opened in an O shape. He looked at Zhong Qing in front of him with an incredible look. She was so proud of her phoenix bloodline that she thought she had hidden it so well that no one could see it, but he had already known about it. And he said it so casually. Miss, I'm sorry, even if you have the phoenix bloodline, you still don't meet the requirements of my disciple. Please leave now. Zhong Qing put away the fish he had just caught, and remembered that the purpose of satisfying today's appetite had been achieved, so he picked up the fish guard, packed up his things, and got up to go back. Disciple, see you off. Yes. Su Wenjiu looked at Zhong Qing who was leaving, and his face was ugly. Zhong Qing's words could not help but echo in his mind. Even if you have the phoenix bloodline, you still don't meet the requirements of my disciple. This sentence can be regarded as a blow to her last bit of pride. Chapter 14 The Second Disciple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Wenjiu left Shogun Peak, rushed back to Xianxia Valley. Yukong is in the sky. Seeing the Pingjiang Sect gradually getting smaller, she couldn't calm down for a long time. Who would have thought that such a powerful person was hidden in this small sect? Originally, she grew up under various auras and had a rather high opinion of herself, but this time he came out, and he finally understood what it meant that there were people outside the world, and there was a sky outside the world. My little halo is nothing in front of a truly strong person. Putting aside Zhong Qing, she could not keep up with Zhong Qing's disciple Lin Feng's cultivation speed. You must tell the people of the sect when you go back, and you must not offend the people of the Pingjiang Sect. Sunrise and sunset. In less than half a month, the earth has begun to return to spring, and the temperature has become warmer. The sun is shining all over the earth, and flowers and plants are gradually sprouting out of the ground. Soon it will be the season for all things to revive. Zhong Qing, dressed in a white robe, was lying on a recliner, feeling his cultivation. Host, Zhong Qing. Cultivation, Yu Xian Realm. Apprentice, Lin Feng, innate peak cultivation level, 100-fold increase is being activated. The bond has been activated, waste material bond 1/2. Physique acquired, none. Have acquired special skills, Lao Lu Halo, Sky Eye. Ever since he accepted Lin Feng and started the 1,000-fold increase, in just 1 month, Zhong Qing relied on Lin Feng's cultivation feedback to directly break through from the previous star profound realm to the current moon profound realm. If this kind of speed were spread, I don't know how many people would be envious. Take Su Wenjiu from some time ago as an example. Although she was also in the Yu Xian realm, she only reached this realm after laying the foundation since she was staggering to walk, and with the vigorous training from Xianxia Valley. In comparison, it was too easy for Zhong Qing. Lin Feng's cultivation has now reached the innate peak, and he is only 1 step away from the Qinxian realm. As long as he steps into the Qinxian realm, he has entered the ranks of true masters. Although the speed is very fast, we still need to find the second useless disciple as soon as possible. Zhong Qing couldn't help but murmur, after all, the difference between the feedback of waste material bond 1/2 and 2/2 to his master is 1,000 times and 10,000 times. But Zhong Qing has also studied it recently. The system is actually extremely demanding for this waste material. It has to be the kind of person who can't even get spiritual energy into his body. In such a world of cultivation, finding such a person is in a sense more difficult than finding a purple talent. Because even if a mortal pretends to sit cross-legged and absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, there will always be some spiritual energy entering the body to strengthen the body. Otherwise, Zhong Qing would have rushed to Xianxia and randomly picked up someone on the street to make up the numbers. Maybe the system heard his appeal. The long-lost voice finally sounded. Ding, we found the candidate to accept the disciple. Please host to hurry up and accept the disciple as soon as possible. Oh, Zhong Qing's eyes lit up and he sat up. Host, please rush to Xianxia City immediately. The suitable candidate is in Xianxia City. The system's voice fell, vaguely guiding Zhong Qing in the direction. Xianxia City. Zhong Qing simply cleaned up and rushed towards Xianxia City. He couldn't wait to see the 10,000-fold increase in feedback from his disciple. The cultivation level of Yuexian realm can travel thousands of miles in a day. Xianxia City was only 800 miles away from Pingjiang Sect. Not long after, Zhong Qing had arrived at Xianxia City. The city is bustling with people coming and going, showing its prosperity. Although it is a mortal city, several nearby sects purchase their necessities in this city, including the Pingjiang Sect, so practitioners can be seen everywhere in Xianxia City. Following the system's guidance, Zhong Qing rushed towards Xianxia Square in the center of the city. When he arrived at Xianxia Square, he found that the place was already crowded with people. In the center, there were several old men sitting. And behind them stood a group of sect disciples in uniforms. Below several old men, there are several talent testing stones, and many people are queuing up to test their talents. This situation is no different from the last time Zhong Qing accepted a disciple in the Pingjiang Sect. Listening to the discussion among the crowd, Zhong Qing finally figured out the specific situation. It turned out that Feidao Sect needed to recruit a group of outer disciples, so they openly recruited people in Xianxia Square. Feidao Sect is considered a first-class sect in the eastern region. Even the Xianxia Sect cannot compare. This kind of opportunity is rare for many ordinary people, but at this time, it has come to an end. Congratulations to the disciples who have tested white talent or above. You can board the flying boat of my Feidao Sect later and officially become the outer disciples of my Feidao Sect. Up above, an elder from the Feidao Sect heard a loud bell sound. As soon as he said this, those who had detected white talent or above all showed expressions of surprise, but more than anything, I was dejected. Zhong Qing did not dare to be interested in these, but looked for his precious disciple among the dense crowd. At this moment, among the eliminated people, a dirty little boy walked down the stage and bowed to the elder of the Flying Knife Sect. You're the one who was eliminated. What are you doing here? That when the Fideiman disciples saw this, they wanted to drive them away. Seeing this, the boy quickly took out a token from his pocket. Senior, I have a flying knife token here. Can you make me a disciple of the Flying Knife Sect? Flying Knife Order. That the elder at the top was quite surprised when he heard this. The Feidao Sect does have a Feidao Order. As long as you hold the Feidao Order, you can become a disciple of the Feidao Sect unconditionally. After the disciple presented the Feidao Order, the elder tried to figure out its authenticity. After he confirmed that it was real, he looked down at the little boy and asked, where did this Feidao Order come from? Report to the elder. 5 years ago, an elder of the Feidao Sect was hunted down and seriously injured. He took out this Feidao Order and asked my parents to save his life, and promised that as long as he had this Feidao Order, he could join the Feidao Sect unconditionally. But in order not to reveal his whereabouts, my parents were also killed by the enemy. Before he died, my father gave me this Feidao Order. The boy said sincerely, and when he talked about his parents' death, his eyes could not stop filling with tears. After listening to the boy's words, the elder at the top had already judged the truth, because such an incident did happen 5 years ago. Their elder was hunted down by the enemy, and was seriously injured and lost all his cultivation, and then was rescued by the mortal family, but he had no expression on his face. Looking at the dirty little boy, there was still some disdain in his brows. After a long time, he crushed the flying knife order in his hand into powder, waved his hand casually and said, "Just be a chore's disciple, and dig for the sect after joining. Odds disciples. Okay, I should be able to eat enough." The little boy showed satisfaction, and then hurriedly "Thank you, elder." This. Zhong Qing finally found his candidate for disciple, none other than this little boy. But he didn't expect that he had joined the Feidao sect before he had time to make any move. At the same time, he didn't expect that his disciple's life was so miserable, and the Feidao sect's practice also made him quite ashamed. Although the little boy had no talent, the guardian was at least the backbone of the sect. His parents saved the guardian's life with their lives. After entering the Feidao sect, let alone how good his treatment was, let others let him go to dig, assigning an idle position, so that this child has no worries about food and drink. There is almost no burden on the Feidao sect, but fortunately, he is about to become his disciple. Chapter 15, Crushing the Same Level. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, just as Zhong Qing was thinking about how to get in touch with the Feidao sect and take this disciple into his bag, a man came from the sky. The man had red hair, a pair of blood-red pupils, and a faint black aura all over his body. "Who is coming?" Seeing the man's appearance, the elder of Feidaemen frowned, stood up and patted the table, looking at the man with a gloomy look. "Elder, please be patient and don't be impatient. I'm bloody crazy." The man flashed his strange eyes, and after landing, he bowed to the elder of Feidao sect. "Blood mad? Disciple of the red-haired old ghost?" The elder of Feidao sect asked in surprise. "The elder is indeed well informed. He can tell my identity at a glance," Shui Kuang said with a leisurely smile. "That's natural." After the elder of Feidaemen confirmed his identity, his expression and tone immediately became much more polite, not for anything else, because the red-haired old ghost is a famous casual cultivator within a radius of thousands of miles. Although the techniques he practices are somewhat demonic, no one can deny his tyrannical strength in the Yuexian realm. Even if his own ancestor from the Feidao sect comes to attack, he may not be able to defeat him. "I don't know what the sudden arrival of the blood-mad young master means," the elder of Feidao sect said with a smile. "Just a small request." Shui Kuang smiled coldly, looked at the little boy just now, and said leisurely, "This child has been poisoned by some kind of toxin since he was a child. Although this toxin is not fatal, due to the long-term poisoning, it has become one with his blood. I am now practicing the techniques taught by my master, and I need the qi, blood and heart of this poison to use as medicine. Although this kind of physique can be cultivated, it will take a lot of time after all. Now that it is ready-made, I came out to ask the elders for help, hoping that the elders will grant it." This. The elder of Feidaemen showed hesitation. "Elder, this kid is just a waste. One more or one less will have no impact on your Feidao sect. And if you sell me this favor will always be there." Shui Kuang said again with emotion and reason, "The elders of Feidaemen are still around. What he cares about is not the life of the little boy, what he cares about is the reputation of Feidao sect. It's just that this blood maniac is a demon cultivator, but he still told him in public. If his Feidao sect agrees, doesn't this mean that he is colluding with the demon cultivator? But thinking deeply about what the blood maniac said, it makes sense. It's just a waste, indeed one more, no more, and one less. The most important thing is to be able to accept personal feelings. The red-haired old ghost is just such a disciple. Isn't the favor of the blood madman the same as the favor of the red-haired old ghost?" So he made a decision and said with a faint smile, "Since the blood-mad young master has spoken, how can I refuse?" "No, don't." Beside, the little boy yelled in collapse, his whole body shaking with anger. He never expected that the turning point in his life would be so cruel. "Elder, please, no. I am now a disciple of the Feidao sect. My parents saved the lives of the elders of the Feidao sect." The little boy almost prayed. Hearing this, the elder of Feidaemen hesitated. After all, this little boy's parents saved the life of the great elder. If the great elder pursues the matter, thinking of this, he directly took out the jade slip and contacted the great elder of the sect. Humph, he's just a mortal. Come and ask me about this. The flying knife order was given to his parents, not him. His parents died that year, so the flying knife order is naturally invalid. From the jade slips, the indifferent voice of the great elder of Pingjiang Sect came out, with a strong hint of impatience in his voice. As soon as he said these words, the little boy collapsed on the ground. When his parents took the risk to rescue him, they wanted to give him the flying knife order for the sake of the flying knife order, so that he could escape from the miserable life of ordinary people and become a master, but I didn't expect that the person who sacrificed his life to save was such a person. If I had known earlier, he shouldn't have come today. At this time, the Pingjiang Sect learned the attitude of the great elder and gave the order completely, saying in a deep voice, whether the flying sword order counts or not, just now you have become a disciple of the Pingjiang Sect, and the disciples of the Pingjiang Sect will. You should obey the orders of the sect, and in the face of the sect's interests, you should take the initiative to devote yourself to Pingjiang Sect. Although the people at the scene felt ashamed of Pingjiang's actions, no one spoke up for the little boy. The world of immortality, such is the case with the law of the jungle. Pingjiang's indifferent and cold demeanor completely chilled the little boy's heart. With his eyes red, he remembered Pingjiang's style and hatred deeply in his heart, and he pulled up his legs and rushed out of the crowd to run. Seeing that the little boy was about to run away, Shui Kuang sneered and was not in a hurry. After he ran far away, he slowly raised his palm, and a burst of energy rushed towards him. Seeing the Qi Jin approaching, the little boy had a look of despair on his face, and his heart was filled with deep reluctance. However, at the critical moment, a figure in white appeared in front of him and protected him behind him. Then with an understatement of his hand, he dispersed the energy that came from the attack. The sudden change caused everyone to turn their attention to the figure in white. Who are you? That the blood maniac looked at the white-clothed figure that suddenly appeared and shouted with murderous intent on his face. However, Zhong Qing ignored him. Instead, he knelt down to wipe the tears from the little boy's face and asked in a warm voice, "What's your name?" That the little boy looked at Zhong Qing in front of him, and his heart was full of emotion. No one spoke for him at the scene, only Zhong Qing appeared and protected him behind him. "My name is Su Yi, thank you for saving my life." Grateful, he knelt down directly in front of Zhong Qing. "Su Yi, a good name." Zhong Qing smiled softly, and then asked, "Su Yi, are you willing to worship me as your master?" Hearing that Zhong Qing wanted to accept him as a disciple, Su Yi's young face was full of disbelief. For him, being able to enter the Pingjiang Sect as a chore's disciple was enough, and he never dared to think that someone would accept him as a disciple, not to mention Zhong Qing, who could interrupt the blood maniac's attack with a wave of his hand. He kowtowed without any hesitation and said, "Su Yi is willing, meet the master." "Ha ha ha, very good." Zhong Qing helped Su Yi up with a smile. At the same time, the voice of the system came out in his mind. "Congratulations to the host, you have successfully accepted a disciple. Successfully activated the waste bond February 2nd. Waste bond 2 halves, the disciple's cultivation speed can be increased by 100 times, and the host can obtain 10,000 times the cultivation feedback. As the system voice fell, Zhong Qing clearly felt that because Lin Feng was practicing, his cultivation, which was improving all the time, increased tenfold on the original basis. This feeling was as refreshing as riding a rocket. However, the system voice did not stop. Congratulations to the host for activating the waste material bond February 2nd for the first time, and reward the host with the same level crushing effect. Same level crushing effect. The host can crush the host with the same level and below into powder with any attack action. Host, Zhong Qing. Cultivation, Yuexian Realm. Disciple, Lin Feng, innate cultivation, 100-fold amplification is activated. Disciple, Su Yi, no cultivation, 100-fold amplification is to be activated. Activated bond, waste material bond 2 halves, more bonds to be developed. Physique obtained, none. Special skills obtained, Lao Lu Halo, Sky Eye, same level crushing. Same level crushing. It's okay to say it's useless, at least it saves a lot of trouble. Zhong Qing slowly raised the corner of his mouth. Are you deaf when I ask you a question? That at this time, Xue Kuang saw that Zhong Qing ignored him for a long time, and he was already crazy. Because of his cultivation of magic, he has reached the Xianxia realm, crushing the younger generation incomparable to the second-rate sect elders. The title of his master alone can allow him to walk sideways in this Wanli area. Not only did Zhong Qing ruin his good deeds, but he also dared to ignore him. In his heart, at this moment, he sentenced Zhong Qing to death. Chapter 16. Don't let go of anyone who has hurt you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After talking to Su Yi, Zhong Qing stood up and turned his attention to the blood maniac. Pingjiang Sect, Lord of the Shogunate Peak, Zhong Qing. Zhong Qing held Su Yi and said expressionlessly. Shogunate Peak, Zhong Qing. Hearing Zhong Qing's words, Xue Kuang showed a look of reminiscence, as did the elders of the Feidao sect and the onlookers in the stands. Obviously, everyone is very interested in Zhong Qing's identity. After a while, someone remembered Zhong Qing's identity. He is the useless peak master of Pingjiang Sect, the useless person that the Taoist picked up from outside. Someone pointed at Zhong Qing and shouted. After being reminded like this, everyone thought about it. After all, they were in the same eastern territory, so they knew each other more or less about each other. It turns out it's you, a loser. The blood maniac suddenly showed a sneer and sneered, but you don't look like the waste as rumored by the outside world. You can actually take over 10% of my power. But you, the sect master of Pingjiang Sect, have to be polite when you meet me. You are a little peak master, who gave you the courage to meddle in other people's business. Xue Kuang drank loudly and asked in a deep voice, I thought Zhong Qing was a ruthless character, but this is what happened. Up above, Feidaman also had a joking look on his face. For the sake of the red-haired old ghost, the Feidao sect would sell this blood maniac a favor, let alone the Pingjiang Sect. Zhong Qing narrowed his eyes and said leisurely, I suggest you, before I change my mind, go back to where you came from. You have such a loud voice. The blood maniac simply laughed in anger. Many people at the scene also laughed, especially the elder of the Feidao sect, as if they had heard some big joke. How can the little peak master of Shogunate Peak have the courage to say such things to the blood maniac? You don't think that being able to withstand 10% of blood maniac's attacks means you can really compete with blood maniac? If we really fight, even I may not be able to evenly match him. On sight, everyone looked at Zhong Qing jokingly. Boy, I'll give you a chance. At this time, the blood maniac said coldly, first bring me my medicine introduction, then get under my crotch and cut off one of your arms. I will spare your life. Otherwise, believe it or not, I let you lie dead on the spot. The Pingjiang Sect behind you not only did not dare to let go of half a skin, but also had to come to me respectfully with a gift to apologize to me. Noisy. Zhong Qing looked disdainful and completely unmoved, looking at the blood maniac like he was looking at a clown. Seeing that Zhong Qing dared to ignore him, the blood maniac's anger had risen to the extreme. Okay, if you don't eat the toast, you will be fined. As he spoke, Xue Kuang flipped his hand and a thick black mist filled the air, covering Zhong Qing and approaching Zhong Qing in an instant. This kid is dead. You deserve to die. It's not good to offend anyone but the blood maniac. Everyone at the scene believed that Zhong Qing would definitely die. However, facing this blow, Zhong Qing's face remained calm, his clothes squeaked with energy, and he slowly raised a finger, just like pressing down an ant. He pressed towards Xue Kuang. This pointed out, the color of heaven and earth changes. The blood madman's attack was shattered, and in a blink of an eye he was crushed on top of the blood madman's head. What? Don't want. The power of this blow directly broke through the blood maniac's psychological defense. His expression suddenly changed, and he opened his mouth and shouted. Stop it. My master is a red-haired old ghost. If you kill me, he will not let you go. He will let your 9 tribes, including the entire Pingjiang Sect, be buried with you. But in the face of the blood maniac's final threat, Zhong Qing remained unmoved. This finger instantly covered the blood madness. Then, under the horrified and smacking eyes of everyone present, the blood maniac directly vaporized, leaving not even a trace of scraps of flesh behind, except for his dying roar that still echoed in the square. There was no trace of the blood maniac, and the scene is at this moment. It was also deathly silent. Everyone looked at Zhong Qing as if they were seeing a ghost, and their hearts were filled with turmoil. Is this really the useless peak master rumored by the outside world? Blood madness is close to the peak of Xianxia realm's cultivation. Coupled with the techniques he cultivates, he is almost invincible in Xianxia realm, and even has the possibility of escaping from the hands of Xinchuan realm, but it was this kind of strength that was crushed to death by Zhong Qing with one finger. The difficulty is not much more difficult than killing an ant. At this moment, those who had just made sarcastic comments, laughed and cursed, all closed their mouths and shrank their heads, not daring to look into Zhong Qing's eyes. However, Zhong Qing has no intention of letting them go. Most of them were just innate and acquired realms. Zhong Qing was not even interested in raising his hand. After a few glances, these people collectively exploded and turned into a mist of blood on the spot. This is the effect of crushing the same level. Killing the same level and below saves time and effort. It only requires one action, even a look. This scene shocked everyone so much that they stepped back with fear. Who would have thought that the trash of Shogun Peak that everyone reviled would actually be such a peerless fierce god? At the same time, I was also congratulating myself that I didn't curse too much just now. Disciple, today is the first lesson I will teach you. Zhong Qing turned his head and said to Su Yi, we will not take the initiative to do anything harmful to nature, but we will not let go of anyone who has hurt us. Su Yi had long been stunned by Zhong Qing's method of killing Shui Kuang with one finger, and he also felt inexplicably relieved. Tears flowed from his eyes. For the first time, he experienced what it felt like to have someone back him up. At this moment, what Zhong Qing said was the truth of the world for him. Yes, master, I understand. Su Yi gritted his teeth and nodded solemnly. Zhong Qing touched Su Ye's head and looked at the Feidao sect above. Sensing Zhong Qing's gaze, the elder of the Feidao sect was so scared that he quickly took 2 steps back. As a bottom elder of the Feidao sect, his cultivation was only at the peak of the Qinxian realm, and he was only on par with Shui Kuang. Zhong Qing could kill Shui Kuang with one finger, and he had no doubt that Zhong Qing could kill him in the same way. Seeing Zhong Qing approaching him, he couldn't help but retreat, staring and trembling nervously, saying, I didn't interfere with what happened between you and Shui Kuang just now. Although I said a few more words, I am the elder of Feidao sect. If you do anything to me, if you are not good to me, it is undoubtedly a declaration of war on my Feidao sect. What are you doing? What are you doing? You stand still. At the end of the conversation, the elder was so scared that he lost control of his bowels and bladder, and knelt down directly in front of Zhong Qing. The elder who was so high and mighty just now, at this moment, immediately caused an uproar at the scene, and Zhong Qing didn't expect that this person was so timid. His face was full of disdain. This is a typical example of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. In fact, it's not his fault that he is so scared, mainly because Zhong Qing's methods are too horrible. Shui Kuang pressed his finger into nothingness, and did not let go of any of the other talkative people. If Zhong Qing really wanted to kill him, he didn't think his identity would cause any concerns to Zhong Qing. After all, he had killed Shui Kuang and he didn't have any concerns about the red-haired old ghost, so why would he be afraid of the addition of the Feidao sect? Chapter 17, Heavenly Disaster Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the elder knelt down, other Fideiman disciples were also in a panic, not knowing what to do, and they also knelt down in 2s and 3s. Disciple, look, this is the Flying Knife sect you wanted to join before. Zhong Qing couldn't help but mocked. So he gritted his teeth and watched this scene. He could not forget that the Feidao sect wanted to force him to hand over to the blood maniac regardless of his parents' kindness in rescuing the great elder. Compare them now with the way they kneel in front of Zhong Qing. It's a travesty. I quit and joined the Flying Knife sect. At this time, a young man who was originally admitted to become a disciple of Feidao sect made a voice. I'm quitting too. I won't join such a sect. As the first person's voice came out, a herd effect suddenly appeared. The disciples who had originally rushed to test and join the Feidao sect regretted it one by one. In fact, many people felt a little chilled when they knew about Su Ye's cause and effect, and when the elders of the Feidao sect wanted to give Su Yi to the blood maniac, but no one dared to say anything at that time. Get out! Zhong Qing had no interest in this Feidaeman elder and kicked him directly, as if he had been granted amnesty. The elder left in despair with a group of disciples. Disciple, I will take you back to the peak. Zhong Qing took Su Yi and rose into the air, turning into a stream of light and disappearing in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Looking at Zhong Qing leaving, it took a long time for everyone to calm down. No one thought that such a change would happen today. In the eyes of everyone, this is how Shixin comes to visit, but Zhong Qing is famous in Tianyue City, and has become the subject of discussion by countless people before and after meals. Master, can you train me to become a master? In mid-air, Su Yi suddenly asked. Sure. Zhong Qing smiled. Then I want to kill someone. Who do you want to kill? I want to kill the great elder of the Feidao sect. Su Yi said with a firm face, his life was paid for by my parents. He owes my parents a life, so now I want to take his life. Take it back. Hearing Su Ye's words, Zhong Qing couldn't help being stunned, then he couldn't help but burst out laughing, and he couldn't help but praise loudly, well, you are worthy of being my disciple Zhong Qing. I guarantee that it won't take long for you to take this life back. Zhong Qing touched Su Ye's head. His face was full of relief. After what happened today, his apprentice has undergone a transformation. In the world of cultivating immortals, this is how it should be. Soon, the two returned to Shogun Peak. After returning to Shogun Peak, Zhong Qing immediately sent a message to Lin Feng. Lin Feng flew over from the sky and saw Su Yi next to Zhong Qing when he landed. Master, is this your new junior brother? Lin Feng asked excitedly. That's right, your junior brother will be in charge of you for the next few days. Zhong Qing laughed softly, and at the same time introduced Lin Feng's identity to Su Yi. I've met senior brother. Su Yi saluted respectfully. Oh, junior brother, you are too polite. You, just live next door to me. My place is a geomantic treasure. Lin Feng entertained his junior brother with enthusiasm. After he personally helped him settle down, he also took him to get familiar with everything about Shogun Peak. It's so hard to bring disaster to your body. Zhong Qing lay on the couch in the courtyard and personally started the exercises for Su Yi. Because he passed the Sky Eye test, Su Yi was not poisoned since childhood as the blood maniac said, but was born with a constitution called Tianane body. Once this constitution is activated, even one cell in the body will all contain highly toxic substances. Even if it is not activated, it is not something that the little blood maniac can bear. Therefore, if the blood maniac really uses Su Yi as a medicine to practice, not only will he not be able to break through, but he will die suddenly. However, activating the Tianane body requires specific techniques. In the end, Zhong Qing chose an imperial-level skill book called Yiyuan. This Yiyuan not only perfectly fit Su Ye's physique, but the key was that it could also suppress his Tiannan physique. Don't let it out. Then he chose an emperor-level dark claw as a weapon and asked Lin Feng to send it to him. At the same time, Lin Feng was asked to teach Su Yi the so-called formula. After Su Yi officially started practicing, Zhong Qing quietly activated the 100-fold increase. After the amplification was turned on, coupled with the amplification of the god-level skills, in just a moment, the news of Su Ye's breakthrough came from Shogun Peak, the first level of body refining, the second level of body refining, the third level of body refining, and Zhong Qing also received 10,000 times more feedback. It's just that the gap in realm between Zhong Qing and Su Yi is too big. Even if Su Yi breaks through many levels in one go, Zhong Qing can't break through one level, but Zhong Qing was not in a hurry. The two disciples have increased their abilities 100 times, and coupled with their own feedback 10,000 times, it is only a matter of time before they want to improve their realm. In the wilderness ring, Jian Lao couldn't stop sighing when he saw Su Yi, whose teleportation speed increased as if he were sitting in space. Oh, it won't take long for you two boys to surpass me in my heyday. Even if I am resurrected by then, I will only be your tailgater. It is impossible to say that this feeling is not complicated. When he felt how difficult and how much people admired his realm in his heyday, but found that others could easily reach it by just sitting in meditation and reciting a mantra in their hearts. It was impossible not to feel frustrated. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh again at the horror of Zhong Qing's mysterious mantra. What kind of mantra is it that can be so terrifying? If I could become Zhong Qing's disciple one day and know this mantra, it would be great. At the same time, the news that Zhong Qing killed the blood maniac with one finger in Tianhua City also spread to Pingjiang Sect. When this news reached the ears of the elders and peak masters, everyone rushed to the main peak of Xianxia. Master, is this true? An elder couldn't help asking. It seems that you also know it. Xianyuan Hong sighed. I just got the exact news, it is indeed true. After getting Xianyuan Hong's confirmation, everyone gasped. Originally, they thought Zhong Qing was a useless person who stayed at Mufu Peak and waited for death, but they didn't expect that he killed the arrogant Duan Feng in one fell swoop at Xianjiang main peak last time. This was enough to shock them, but they didn't expect that Zhong Qing killed Xue Kuang with one finger again. It seems that junior brother Nai is more powerful. We all misjudged him at the beginning. Xianyuan Hong couldn't help but sigh, such a genius has been ignored by us. Chapter 18, My Shogunate Leader's Self-Defense Counterattack is Reasonable. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, other elders and peak masters also sighed with emotion. How old is Zhong Qing Kai? His real age is only 18 or 19 now. Originally, when Zhong Qing killed Duan Feng, because Duan Feng was at the late stage of Qinxian realm, they guessed that Zhong Qing was probably at the peak level of Qinxian realm, and this, they still tried their best to guess. After all, they had reached the star profound realm at the age of 18 or 19, and they simply didn't have the guts to guess. Because even if this kind of cultivation reaches the Holy Land of the Eastern region, it will still be outstanding, unless the tomb of the ancestor of the Pingjiang Sect is smoking. But now there is news that Xue Kuang, who was at the peak of the Qinxian realm, was killed with one finger, which means that Zhong Qing's cultivation must have reached the star Xian realm, and it's not an ordinary star profound realm. This is not as simple as smoke rising from the ancestor's grave. To know, even his sect leader, Xianyuan Hong, was only at the middle stage of the star profound realm. As for the elders and peak masters of the Xianjiang sect, except for the great elder who is also in the star Xian realm, most of the others are only at the Qinxian realm. Shame on you. Everyone present felt ashamed without exception. Zhong Qing, who had always thought he didn't know how to practice, actually had a higher level of cultivation than all of them, even comparable to the sect leader Xianyuan Hong. However, Zhong Qing killed the blood madman after all. There is an old red-haired ghost behind the blood maniac, just in case he comes to cause trouble. At this time, one of the elders said solemnly, and in this world, coincidentally. As soon as the elder finished speaking, battle fluctuations came from the mountain gate. A red-haired man carried a long sword on his shoulder, killed many disciples stationed at the mountain gate, and attacked towards the main peak of Xianjiang with no resistance. Pingjiang Sect, get out of here! As the red-haired man shouted loudly, he swung the long knife in his hand and cut off half of the main peak of Xianjiang. Rocks rolled down, the sky shook, and it was like a shocking earthquake. Countless disciples suffered heavy casualties. At this time, Xianyuan Hong and others rushed out after hearing the commotion. Xianyuan Hong looked at the red-haired man solemnly. They never expected that the red-haired old ghost would come and kill them before they could discuss a countermeasure. Good, the red-haired man in front of him is the red-haired old ghost. Under his messy red hair was a face that was highly decayed and full of hideous features. One of his eyeballs was necrotic, and the other eyeball was also leaking disgusting thick water. Red-haired old ghost, why are you breaking into our Xianjiang sect without permission? Xianyuan Hong shouted gloomily. Stop pretending and hand over your sect's Zhong Qing to me. The red-haired old ghost was filled with murderous intent. His originally ferocious appearance now looked a little distorted. Old red-haired ghost, what happened to us, master of the shogunate peak, to you? Xianyuan Hong's pupils flashed and he delayed for time. Secretly, he sent a message to the elder behind him, and said urgently, immediately send a message to Zhong Qing, asking him to leave the Xianjiang sect temporarily to avoid the edge. The red-haired old ghost's Yuexian realm cultivation is invincible. The elder behind him nodded when he heard the words, and quietly passed the message secretly. Xianyuan Hong, stop pretending. The red-haired old ghost said angrily, that little beast clearly knows that Blood Maniac is my disciple, yet he dares to kill my disciple. Today I will turn that little beast into a stick. Oh, so that's what you're talking about. Xianyuan Hong's eyes flashed and he said tit for tat, as far as I know, it was the Blood Maniac who did it first, right? Why, only your disciples are allowed to take action, but my people from the Pingjiang Sect are not allowed to fight back. Humph, my disciple naturally has a reason to kill him. You, a small peak master of Pingjiang Sect, can either passively wait for death or kneel down and beg for mercy. Who gave him the courage to fight back against my disciple? That the red-haired old ghost exuded monstrous rage. My disciple has inherited my mantle. He is only 20 years old and is already at the pinnacle of the Qianxian realm. In time, all the so-called geniuses of the Holy Land will be trampled under his feet. You, a rubbish peak master of the Xianxia sect, have nothing to live up to. How can you compare with my disciple? What is hateful is that such a talented disciple of mine was killed by a small peak master of your Xianxia sect. I hate it, I hate it. As he spoke, the red-haired old ghost was covered in black mist. In his rage, the surrounding area had turned into a vacuum, and a series of sonic booms were heard from the ground beneath his feet. Bah, I gave your mother's stinky shit. Lei Ning, the master of Shinhu Peak, is a bald man who has always been direct and straight up. He directly cursed, your apprentice is so awesome and can be killed by my Shogun Peak Master with one finger. Why are you showing off your superiority? Yes, your apprentice's life is life, but the life of our Xianxia sect is not life. The other Peak Master was also shaken with momentum and refused to give in. Moreover, you two demon cultivators, master and disciple, have countless lives in your hands. I, the Lord of the Shogunate Peak, only take action to eliminate harm for the sake of fame. Ha ha ha, the third elder is right. That blood maniac should have died long ago. I don't know how many people applauded him after he died. I just didn't see him. If I did, I would definitely slap him to death. For a time, the peak masters and elders of Xianxia sect made noises one after another. Usually in the Xianxia sect, they may have various intrigues for resources and disciples, but when facing foreign enemies, they have always been unanimous. You are looking for death. Under the red hair, the red-haired old ghost made a sound from between his teeth. Have you sent a message to Zhong Qing? Xianyuan Hong sent a message to the elder behind him. Master, it has been sent. The elder behind him nodded. Very good. Xianyuan Hong nodded, and then he looked up at the high-handed red-haired old ghost again. Hong Zhong's voice came out. Red-haired old ghost, today I, Xianyuan Hong, will tell you this. Your apprentice Shui Kuang attacked first, and he died in the hands of my Shogun Peak Master because he was not good at learning. It is reasonable for my Shogun Peak Master to fight back in self-defense. So it is impossible for you to take people away from my Xianxia sect today. Xianyuan Hong's momentum shook, and he shouted in a deep voice, if you want to touch Zhong Qing's hair, you can just come over and fight with us. Who is afraid of who? As soon as Xianyuan Hong's words fell, many elders and peak masters behind him released their momentum at the same time, and stepped forward and followed Xianyuan Hong, instantly forming a rope. Okay, since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. The furious red-haired old ghost released thick black mist all over his body, and his powerful cultivation was furious. Under the black mist, a powerful knife fell from the sky. Everyone, they have beaten us to our doorstep, please join me in fighting the enemy. Facing this knife, at the front, Xianyuan Hong said fearlessly, I am the dignified Xianxia sect, and this breath cannot be weak. Even if we lose today, Zhong Qing, who has grown up in the future, will definitely avenge us. Chapter 19, Moon Profound Realm, that's all. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Facing the red-haired old ghost's sword, Xianyuan Hong and others used their own methods to welcome it together. However, what everyone didn't expect was that they overestimated the power of their cooperation. He also underestimated the strength of the Yuexian realm. Just when their attack and the red-haired old ghost's sword were approaching, they felt that they were invincible in the Yuexian realm. It seems that Xianyuan Hong and the red-haired old ghost only have one level of awareness, but this gap cannot be filled by relying on the number of people. This sword almost destroyed the attacks of Xianyuan Hong and others. Fortunately, the power of this sword was also weakened a lot, but even so, Xianyuan Hong and the others were knocked upside down by the remaining power of the sword. They all vomited blood and hit the peak wall behind them, making more than a dozen big craters before they fell to the ground. Snort. The light of a grain of rice dares to compete with the bright moon. Above the sky, the red-haired old ghost's eyes flashed with disdain. You, a bunch of trash from the Pingjiang Sect, dare to stop me. You are simply overestimating your capabilities. I'll give you one last chance to hand over Zhong Qing to me. Red-haired old ghost, don't make such wishful thinking. Xianyuan Hong and others stood up from the ground with difficulty, spit out a mouthful of blood and said, people are fighting for a breath, and trees are fighting for a skin. It is impossible for people to leave it to you. Yes, you can't find Zhong Qing either. Okay, since you are so stubborn, I will kill you first, then destroy the Pingjiang Sect, and finally find Zhong Qing slowly. The red-haired old ghost's eyes flashed with anger, the long sword in his hand was shrouded in mysterious energy, and the permeating black mist was even more intense to the extreme. Everyone, follow me and take another stab at him. Xianyuan Hong stared at the red-haired old ghost in the sky solemnly and shouted loudly. Yes. All the peak masters and elders stepped forward together, their faces showing great seriousness, because it can be seen that the red-haired old ghost's sword will be stronger than the one just now. However, just when everyone was about to cast the spell, a figure suddenly appeared next to Xianyuan Hong. Everyone, I will do this. As the voice fell, Xianyuan Hong quickly turned his head and discovered that Zhong Qing, dressed in white, had appeared beside him at some point. You, Zhong Qing, when did you come? Xianyuan Hong asked in horror. After receiving the summons from the third elder, I rushed here immediately. Zhong Qing said warmly. You, Xianyuan Hong looked annoyed and shouted, didn't the summons say that you should leave? I'm the one who caused this, so why bother asking you to wipe my ass? Zhong Qing said with a long smile, this was the reason why he didn't leave the Pingjiang Sect after his waste material bond was activated. In the past, except for Duan Feng who bullied him, other elders and peak masters had not done anything excessive to him, especially peak master Xianyuan Hong, who would often greet him when he met him down the peak. This sect, even though it is not big, it is only second-rate in the eastern region, but he still has feelings, especially today's scene. Completely made Zhong Qing feel recognized. Yes, but he is at the Moon Profound Realm, so there are so many of us that we may not be able to stop him. Xianyuan Hong asked in a daze, how can you stop him alone? It's just the Moon Profound Realm. The sect leader is worrying too much. You Xian Realm, just. Xianyuan Hong and others looked at Zhong Qing blankly. Zhong Qing smiled faintly, stepped out with his hands behind his back, and slowly raised his head to look at the arrogant red-haired old ghost in the air. The red-haired old ghost, I am Zhong Qing, and I am the one who killed your disciple Xue Kuang. Don't you want to kill me? If you have any means, come over as soon as possible. Looking at the red-haired old ghost quietly, Zhong Qing said lightly. Are you Zhong Qing? The red-haired old ghost stared at Zhong Qing. Seeing the murderer of his disciple, the red-haired old ghost's entire face became distorted. He stared at a pair of scarlet pupils and breathed heavily. Okay, little beast, I really didn't expect you to dare to come out on your own. Then you can be buried with my disciple. A strong wind blew in the sky, and a huge storm rolled up with the red-haired old ghost at the center. The storm and his own black mist swept together, like the end of the world, and everything in its path, whether it was buildings or rocks, was crushed into powder. In the storm, various ferocious human heads, faces and monsters appeared from time to time, making bursts of frightening screams that made people's scalp numb. Okay, so scary. Seeing this storm, Xianyuan Hong and others felt that their legs were a little weak. Is this the true strength of the Moon Profound Realm? Even if he, Xianyuan Hong, was swept away by his storm, he would definitely be filled with hatred on the spot. Can't help it. They looked at Zhong Qing in front of them, what can he use to stop him? In the panic, the red-haired old ghost moved, carrying the sweeping storm. He raised the long knife in his hand. The long knife was surrounded by various resentful spirits and monsters, and slashed directly towards Zhong Qing. The knife comes out, the storm followed, the sky is covered with flying sand and rolling stones. This knife carried all the anger of the red-haired old ghost. However, facing this knife, Zhong Qing just slowly raised his palm. Subsequently, he held out a finger. Then he gently pressed towards the red-haired old ghost who was mixed in the storm. In an instant, the storm collapsed, and the ghosts and monsters turned into nothingness. What? The red-haired old ghost widened his eyes full of fear. The power contained in this finger made him feel like he was facing the whole world and was invincible, and even the long sword in his hand began to vaporize slowly. No, don't. As this finger completely crushed down, accompanied by the red-haired old ghost's last unbelievable voice, he and his sword were directly vaporized and turned into nothingness. After a long time, the fighting energy spreading in the sky gradually subsided, but Xianxia and others behind Zhong Qing opened their mouths, and they had already turned into stone one by one, but they couldn't calm down for a long time. What did they see? The red-haired old ghost in Yuexian realm was actually killed by Zhong Qing with a finger. Even the hair was not left. For a moment, everyone looked at Zhong Qing as if they had seen a ghost. You. Xianxia pointed at Zhong Qing and couldn't speak for a long time, and the elders and peak masters behind him were not much better. Originally, they thought they had overestimated Zhong Qing enough. After all, Zhong Qing's age was there, but they didn't expect Zhong Qing's performance to refresh their cognition again and again. Seeing everyone's expressions, Zhong Qing couldn't help but touch his nose and smiled embarrassedly. You kid, are you a human or a monster? Finally, Xianxia, who had recovered a little, stared and said, You hit it well enough. You are so powerful, but you pretended to be useless before. You really are. There is no way, sect master. Zhong Qing couldn't help laughing. Naturally, he couldn't tell the system's affairs, so he had to evade. This world of immortal cultivation is full of intrigues. It is necessary to be a little low-key and hide a little bit of cultivation. Chapter 20. Are you sure what you hid is just a little bit, not a billion bits? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhong Qing had no choice but to prevaricate like this, but when Xianxia heard this, his face turned green. He hit Zhong Qing hard with his elbow, and said angrily, Do you call this hiding a little bit of cultivation? Are you sure it's just a little bit, not a billion points? Zhong Qing couldn't help but touch his nose again. It was impossible for him to tell the truth that he had only brought it up in the past month, so he quickly changed the subject and said, Okay, sect leader, the old red-haired ghost is dead. This is a mess, so you should hurry up and clean up the mess. Indeed, under the sword of the red-haired old ghost and Zhong Qing's finger, the main peak of Xianjiang had been completely destroyed. There is indeed a lot of mess to clean up, so Xianxia had to take people to clean up the mess and treat some injured disciples. After Zhong Qing helped treat some injured disciples, he also returned to Shogun Peak. Half a day later, after cleaning up the mess, Xianxia sat in the front seat, radiant. Next, the other elders and the peak master also sat down together. Without exception, everyone's face still showed an expression of excitement. A peerless strong man as strong as the red-haired old ghost of the Yuexian realm was killed on their Pingjiang Sect with just one finger. Thinking about it now, it still feels like a dream. Ha. Suddenly, Xianxia couldn't help laughing. Others also had smiles that couldn't be hidden on their faces. Why is the Pingjiang Sect just a second-rate force in the eastern region? Isn't it because their sect doesn't have the moon-profound realm? And now that Zhong Qing is here, won't it be a matter of minutes before his Pingjiang Sect squeezes into the first-class power? Everyone, I want to discuss one more thing with you. At this time, Xianxia said again, everyone knows that the previous sect master received a disposable talisman in the secret realm. There is a king-level skill recorded in the talisman. But because it is a disposable talisman, it will destroy itself when opened. Therefore, the sect unanimously decided that when a true genius disciple appears in our sect, we will give him this king-level skill. And now this talented disciple has appeared, so I decided to give this king-level technique to Zhong Qing immediately. Do you have any opinions? Xianyuan Hong stood at the top, looked at everyone and said. I agree with the sect master's decision. Yes, I agree. Zhong Qing can kill an old red-haired ghost at a young age. If this king-level skill is given to him, it will be even more powerful. Therefore, no one is more suitable for this king-level skill than Zhong Qing. For a while, everyone present expressed their opinions, no one disagreed. Good. Xianyuan Hong nodded with relief, and then said, I will go to Shogun Peak in a moment and give this king-level technique to Zhong Qing. At the same time, Shogun Peak overflowing with joy. Master, I have broken through the Xianxia realm. Lin Feng shared the good news with Zhong Qing with a look of joy on his face, looking at Lin Feng who looked excited. Even though Zhong Qing had known about it for a long time, he was still smiling and happy for him, because when Lin Feng broke through to the Xianxia realm, he also broke through to the middle stage of the Yuexian realm. Disciple, that's great. Keep working hard. Zhong Qing touched his head and encouraged him. Yes, Master. My disciple is here to thank Master again for his kindness in reincarnating me. Lin Feng cried with joy and knelt down respectfully on the ground. In just over a month, he broke through from scratch to the Xianxia realm. Looking back now, it still feels like a dream. Before, he wouldn't even dare to dream like this. The Jian Lao in the desolate ring almost wiped his eyes, and he was also happy for Lin Feng from the bottom of his heart. If he had not become a disciple of Zhong Qing, no one knows what Lin Feng is like today. On the other side, Xi also received good news, directly breaking through the innate realm. Just when the master and disciples were overflowing with joy of breakthrough, a stream of light appeared from the horizon in the distance. Zhong Qing looked up and saw that it was Xianyuan Hong who had arrived from the sect meeting. I've met the sect leader. Zhong Qing stood up, cupped his hands and said from a distance. Lin Feng, who was following him, also bowed and saluted. It's been a long time since I've been to Shogun Peak. Xianyuan Hong looked around with a surprised look on his face, and couldn't help but exclaimed, why is the spiritual energy of your Shogun Peak so strong, even stronger than the spiritual energy of my Xianjiang main peak? Maybe it's because there are few disciples and there are few absorbed, but over time, more are accumulated. Zhong Qing said with a smile. Is that so? Xianyuan Hong blinked his eyes. It seemed that this strong spiritual energy was more than just that. However, remembering that he had something more important to do this time, Xianyuan Hong didn't think too much and followed Zhong Qing into the courtyard. Since the earth has returned to spring, Zhong Qing has thrown the stove back into the warehouse and replaced it with a bamboo table and chairs. Sect Master, please take a seat. Zhong Qing said with a smile. Okay. Xianyuan Hong was not polite, sat down next to him, and mysteriously turned the storage ring. Cough. He coughed a few times with a smile on his face, and then said Zhong Qing, I came here this time to bring you some great news. Oh? Zhong Qing was making tea and couldn't help but move his hands. Obviously, he was also piqued by Xianyuan Hong. He, guess what the benefit is? Xianyuan Hong couldn't help but keep Zhong Qing in suspense. Zhong Qing shook his head. It's like this. Xianyuan Hong approached Zhong Qing and said in a low voice, 100 years ago, the previous sect leader led several elders to break into a secret realm, paid a heavy price, and took out something from the secret realm. Because this thing is a one-time thing, the sect unanimously decided at the time to wait for a genius disciple in the future sect to give him this great benefit. But it's not easy to have a genius disciple. This wait has been more than 100 years. And now, my Pingjiang Sect has produced you, and you are the only choice to get this opportunity. Xianyuan Hong said solemnly. Hearing Xianyuan Hong say this, Zhong Qing's curiosity was also aroused at once. Sect leader, may I ask what the benefit is? Zhong Qing asked curiously. Xianyuan Hong smiled mysteriously, turned the storage ring in his hand, and took out a talisman that exuded an ancient atmosphere. It's this talisman. It contains a king-level cultivation technique. Ha, how about it, are you excited? A king-level cultivation technique. This level of technique is not found in ordinary holy places in our eastern region. Although you have an incredible talent, you must still lack a set of heaven-defying techniques to match it. Now that you have this king-level technique, it is really like adding wings to a tiger. How about it? Is the technique I gave you today a timely help?